Have you ever walked away from someone who didn't value your presence, only to hear later that they regret losing you? That moment when your absence finally speaks louder than your presence ever did. Today, we're exploring a profound Stoic perspective on what happens when people only recognize your worth after you've gone. This isn't about revenge or satisfaction. It's about understanding the natural consequences of our choices and the wisdom in knowing when to let go. Imagine this. You've given your time, energy, and heart to someone, a friend, a partner, a workplace, and despite your best efforts, they took you for granted. When you finally made the difficult decision to walk away, silence. No desperate attempts to make you stay, no recognition of what they were losing. Just the cold indifference that pushed you away in the first place, and then weeks, months, or even years later, the message comes, I miss you. I made a mistake. Things haven't been the same without you. The ancient Stoics would view this situation not with bitter triumph, but with thoughtful understanding of human nature. As Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. Your worth was always there. It was never dependent on their recognition of it. Seneca, another great Stoic philosopher, reminds us, the greatest remedy for anger is delay. The person who dismissed your value acted from their own limited perspective. Perhaps they were blinded by ego, distracted by what they thought were better options, or simply unaware of their own needs. When someone finally recognizes what they've lost in you, it's not because you've suddenly become more valuable. It's because they've finally removed the veil that prevented them from seeing what was always there. This delayed recognition happens for several reasons. First, humans often don't appreciate what's readily available. We take for granted the sun that rises each morning, the air we breathe, and yes, the people who are consistently there for us. It's only in their absence that we feel the void. Second, pride often prevents people from acknowledging mistakes in real time. It's easier to dismiss someone walking away than to admit you've driven them to that point. Third, sometimes people need to experience alternatives to truly understand what they had. Only after dating others do they realize the unique connection they shared with you. Only after hiring your replacement do they understand your irreplaceable contributions. But here's where Stoicism offers profound guidance. This realization on their part is not your victory or defeat. It's simply information. As Epictetus taught, make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. Let me share a story that illustrates this principle perfectly. Consider Michael, who worked tirelessly at a company for 5 years. He consistently went above and beyond, often staying late to help colleagues and taking on additional responsibilities without complaint. Despite his contributions, his manager rarely acknowledged his efforts and passed him over for promotions twice. When Michael finally decided to leave for a position where his talents would be valued, his manager barely reacted, treating his departure as a minor inconvenience. 6 months later, Michael received a message from his former manager, admitting that the team's performance had declined significantly in his absence and asking if he would consider returning with a promotion and substantial raise. This scenario plays out in countless ways across our lives. The colleague who never appreciated your input until team projects started failing without you. The friend who took your emotional support for granted until they found themselves surrounded by superficial relationships. The partner who didn't value your love until they experienced the emptiness of its absence. As Epictetus wisely observed, people are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. When someone didn't care that you left, that was their view at the time. When they later feel the impact of your absence, that's a new view they've adopted. Neither reflects your intrinsic worth, only their perception, which you cannot control. The Stoics emphasize focusing on what is within our power We cannot control whether others value us appropriately. We cannot control whether they experience regret when we're gone. We can only control our responses to these situations. When someone returns to acknowledge your value after dismissing you, you face a choice that should be governed by wisdom, not emotion. You can choose to maintain your distance, recognizing that some bridges, once burned, should remain crossed. Consider reconciliation, but only with clear evidence of genuine change and growth. Acknowledge their realization without attachment to the outcome. The Stoic approach isn't about holding grudges or celebrating someone's regret. Instead, it's about maintaining your center regardless of whether others recognize your worth. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." Consider this deeper dimension of Stoic thinking, the peace that comes from self-sufficiency. The Greeks called it autarkeia, the state of being self-sufficient, requiring nothing external for your contentment. When you develop this quality, others' recognition or lack thereof ceases to disturb your inner tranquility. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, taught that virtue alone is sufficient for happiness. This means that your worth, your virtue, exists independently of external validation. When you align your actions with your values, you create an unshakable foundation for your self-esteem that no one can take away. Think of it like this: if you plant a seed and tend to it carefully, providing water, sunlight, and nutrients, you have fulfilled your duty to that seed. Whether it grows into a magnificent tree that others admire is beyond your control. External recognition is like the admiration of passers-by, pleasant, perhaps, but unnecessary for the tree's intrinsic value. The true power comes not from their belated recognition, but from your response to it. A response grounded in self-respect, emotional intelligence, and your own well-considered values. Let me share another example. Sophia had been in a relationship for 3 years with someone who consistently took her for granted. Despite her attempts to communicate her needs, her partner remained dismissive and emotionally unavailable. When Sophia finally gathered the courage to end the relationship, her partner seemed almost relieved, making no effort to understand her decision or fight for the relationship. 6 months later, after Sophia had invested in her own healing, reconnected with friends, and rediscovered her passions, her ex-partner reached out. They had dated several people since the breakup, but realized that no one compared to Sophia's depth, kindness, and authentic love. They wanted another chance. The Stoic perspective wouldn't advise Sophia to feel vindicated by this turnaround, nor would it automatically encourage reconciliation. Instead, it would guide her to examine the situation dispassionately, asking, "Has this person truly changed? Would reconnecting align with my values and well-being? What is the virtuous response here?" Remember that your worth exists independently of others' ability to see it. When someone finally recognizes what they lost when you left, it doesn't validate you. It merely confirms what you already knew about yourself. This understanding can bring peace. There's no need to say, "I told you so," or to harbor resentment. Their realization is their own journey, just as your decision to leave was yours. Marcus Aurelius offers this powerful perspective. The best way to avenge yourself is to not be like that. Don't become someone who fails to appreciate what's in front of you. Don't become someone who only recognizes value in retrospect. Instead, practice seeing the worth in people while they're still present in your life. Express gratitude for those who bring value to your days. And most importantly, recognize your own worth so completely that you never need external validation to confirm it. The Stoics would advise us to focus on what's within our control, our judgments, our choices, our responses. We cannot control whether someone appreciates us in the moment or only after we've gone. but we can control how we respond to either scenario. Consider too the concept of amor fati, the love of fate, that was central to Stoic philosophy. This isn't passive resignation, but active embrace of life as it unfolds. When someone who didn't value you suddenly realizes their mistake, amor fati means accepting this twist of fate without bitterness or excessive attachment to the outcome. Epictetus, who began life as a slave and became one of history's greatest philosophers, understood the power of focusing on what we can control. He said, "Some things are within our power, while others are not. Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, and, in a word, whatever is of our own doing. Not within our power are our body, our property, reputation, office, and, in a word, whatever is not of our own doing." Whether someone recognizes your value, either while you're present or after you've gone, falls squarely into the category of things beyond your control. Your virtue, your character, your choices, these are within your control and should be your focus. If you're currently in the position of having walked away from someone who didn't value you and they haven't yet had their moment of realization, remember this: their recognition or lack thereof doesn't define your worth. Your value is inherent, unchanging, and independent of external validation. And if you're on the other side, realizing too late what you've lost, let this be a lesson in mindfulness and appreciation. Practice seeing. To them, did you acknowledge their worth? Likewise, consider whether you're investing your time and energy in relationships where your value is recognized and respected. This daily practice of reflection, what the Stoics called examination, helps you become more conscious of the value exchanges in your relationships. It guides you toward investing in connections that nourish rather than deplete you. The most powerful response to someone who didn't care when you left but now feels your absence isn't resentment or even forgiveness. It's growth. It's becoming so focused on your own development and well-being that their delayed recognition becomes merely a footnote in your story, not the headline. Musonius Rufus, another important Stoic philosopher, emphasized that philosophy should be practical. It should help us live better lives. He would likely advise that the practical wisdom in this situation is to use it as a catalyst for growth rather than an opportunity for vindication. Ask yourself, what did this experience teach me about my own worth? How did it strengthen my boundaries? How did it clarify my values and what I will and won't accept in relationships? These questions transform a potentially painful experience into a vehicle for personal development. In conclusion, when they didn't care when you left, but now it's hitting them, that's not your victory or your problem. It's simply the natural consequence of their choices meeting reality. Your victory is in how you've grown since walking away, in the boundaries you've established, and in the peace you've found, regardless of whether they ever recognized what they lost. As Epictetus wisely said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." And the opinions of others, even their belated recognition of your worth, lie far beyond your control. Let me leave you with one final thought from Marcus Aurelius. The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. When someone finally recognizes what they lost in you, choose thoughts that serve your well-being and growth. Choose thoughts that reflect your intrinsic worth rather than their delayed perception of it. This is the path to true liberation, not from others' opinions, but from the need for their validation in the first place. Thank you for joining me today on this exploration of Stoicism and self-worth. If you found value in this video, please consider subscribing and sharing it with someone who might need to hear this message. Remember, your worth isn't determined by who recognizes it. It's inherent, unchanging, and entirely your own. Until next time, practice seeing your own value clearly, regardless of who else sees it. And perhaps most importantly, strive to see the value in others while they're still present in your life.